what's up? I got one more video for you on the book of Hosea, hopefully. I mean, if I have to do 2 videos out of what's left, then I got a problem. So, chapter 12, verses 2 through 6. This is a group of verses. I could go on talking for this one little bit for like 20 minutes. I maybe should just do a whole video on this just by itself some other time. But let's get into it. Starting in chapter 2, it says, "The Lord has an indictment against Judah, and will punish Jacob according to his ways. He will repay him according to his deeds. In the womb he took his brother by the heel, and in his manhood he strove with God." Verse 4 says, "He strove with the angel and prevailed. He wept and sought his favor. He met God at Bethel, and there God spoke with us. The Lord, the God of hosts, the Lord is his memorial name." And here in verse 6, Hosea changes the direction of his speech, prophecy, from being a recap of the story of Jacob, and he turns to the people of Israel and says, "So you, by the help of your God, return. Hold fast to love and justice, and wait continually for your God." Here he's, again, like I said, recapping the story of Jacob wrestling with God at Bethel, or with the angel at Bethel, whichever it is, whatever you believe. That's cool. I'm not even sure if I think it was a god or an angel. I think it's definitely worth looking into, though. It's a really cool story, regardless of what the answer is. And so here, in verse 6, that's really what I kind of want to focus on out of these verses, is that God is saying through Hosea to the people of Israel, "So you, by the help of your God, by the might of the mighty one of Jacob, return to your God." By the help of your God, return. This is implying that if we could get back to God on our own, it'd be very difficult, if not impossible. He's saying, with God's help, return. Grasp onto love and justice. Grab onto these holy attributes of God and wait continually for your God. Grasp a hold of God. Get a hold of God, just like Jacob grabbed a hold of Esau's heel when they were coming out the womb. Get a hold of God and don't you let go. Don't ever let go. And continuously wait for God. Don't just wait a day for Him. Don't just wait a week, a month. Wait for God however long it takes and keep holding on. Don't ever let go. I'm going to go ahead and jump into chapter 12, verse 10 next. It says, "I spoke to the prophets. It was I who multiplied visions, and through the prophets gave parables." So obviously we know prophets prophesy. No duh. So here God is clearly saying that He's been speaking to the Israelites all this time through prophecy, through visions, and through parables. 3 very important ways to communicate with the nation of Israel and with us today. Through prophecy, which I don't know if you've ever been prophesied over or not, or if you've ever prophesied over somebody, but it's freaking cool. It is incredible to witness, even if you're not the one being prophesied over or doing the prophesying. If you get to witness someone prophesy, that's pretty freaking awesome. And you may never have had a vision, but if you know someone who's had a vision, they're pretty freaking sweet. I personally have not had a vision, but I know my dad's had visions before. And that's been pretty cool to hear his stories about that. I've got some friends who've had visions before. One friend who's got visions very continuously. And it's always cool to get to talk to him about what the Lord shows him. And then lastly, there's parables. And frankly, we've all heard parables. Jesus almost talked completely in parables. That was like his secondary language. Whenever the Pharisees asked him tough questions, rarely would he even answer their question without telling a story, a parable, giving an analogy to teach people something. It's a very effective way to teach people stuff, especially when we're too smart and thick-headed to just listen to God and His Word straight up. Sometimes He's got to take a roundabout way to get to us. But if that's what gets it through our heads, then by all means, I'm all for it. I like parables. But here we see God's telling us that he's been using 3 different forms of communication here. Again, prophecy, visions, and parables, to speak to the people of Israel continuously. He's not just stopping with one method. He's trying multiple ways to get to these people, to get to us, to teach us, to make us grow, and to stretch us and challenge us and make us better. And to me, that's just so beautiful. It shows that we don't serve a lazy God. We serve a proactive God who comes after us and is like, hey, I got just one way here to teach you, but I've also got some more. Like, this might be the good way to get a hold of maybe 60% of the people, but I've got some other methods for the rest of you, and I'll use them all day long to make sure I can get through to everybody, so that I can speak to everybody, whether they choose to follow or not. So, I think that's really just pretty cool. And going into chapter 13 now, verse 16, it says, Samaria shall bear her guilt, because she has rebelled against her God. They shall fall by the sword, their little ones shall be dashed in pieces, and their pregnant women ripped open. Zach behind the camera here, I just saw his eyes were about as big as the camera lens. This is a really graphic verse, I understand that, but if you slow down and reread it, you'll understand why it's so important. Samaria, in case you didn't know, this is the capital city of Israel. This is where all the magic happens, so to speak. And he's saying that Samaria is going to bear her guilt because she's rebelled against God. And then the next 3 verses next 3 lines, I guess, are saying what that punishment is going to look like. This is what Samaria has done. It's rebelled against her God. And here's the consequences. Saying that people are going to fall by the sword. They're going to die in battle. A very gruesome, traumatic death. The children, the babies, are going to be dashed against rocks or walls or whatever and broken in pieces. And the pregnant women ripped open. That's just incredibly dark and violent. Like, I've seen some pretty violent movies that didn't even get that crazy and messed up. And here we have in the Bible, God saying this is going to happen to his people because of the sins they've done. And that's just, it kind of puts it into perspective, you know. This is how seriously God takes sin. It's so bad that it requires this kind of fallout. That it requires this kind of consequence. And to me, that's just a very sobering wake-up call to the effects of our sins. And moving into Hosea 14, verse 1, it says, Return, O Israel, to the Lord your God, for you have stumbled because of your iniquity. Well, that's pretty straightforward. I just love how straightforward that is. Like, I think the only way you can make this more simple is if you were to be like, Yo, Israel, you done screwed up. Come on back to God. Like, could you make it any more simple? Seriously. So, again, I just love the simplicity and transparency of that verse, because even the most thick-headed and arrogant of us can still grasp a hold of that and go, yup, there's no misinterpreting that. That's pretty cut and dry. And the last verse I want to share with you is from Hosea 14, verse 9. It says, Whoever is wise, let him understand these things. Whoever is discerning, let him know them. For the ways of the Lord are right, and the upright walk in them, but transgressors stumble in them. This is just an awesome verse to me. Let the wise understand. Let those who are discerning know them. Let the wise, not just the smart, not just the clever, the persistent in study, but let the wise know these things, understand the purpose of this writing, of the Bible as a whole as well. I think this is just a really cool, a declaration over us. Let the wise understand. And I love that next line. For the ways of the Lord are right. Just a very straightforward, very matter-of-fact, because the Lord is right. His ways are just, his ways are pure, and then if the righteous walk in them, the upright, as it puts it here, will walk in them, in the ways of God. The righteous will walk in the ways of God, while the transgressors stumble in them. And of course I have to look at this as like the ways of God being like an obstacle course. You know, the upright, they'll walk right through it. They may not be running or jumping or straight up flying through it, but they're walking. They're making progress. While the transgressors, the sinners, the unrepentant, the wicked, are back here stumbling as they try to imitate the righteous ways of God. So, I just thought that was really kind of cool to see. So, that concludes all of my thoughts from the book of Hosea. Thank you again so much, guys, for watching. Special thanks to my man Zach for running the camera on this video as well as the last one. I totally forgot to give him a credit or a shout out on that one, so you're the best, man. Thank you guys again for watching and taking the time to listen to my thoughts. Hope there's something good in there that you could take away from this. So, thanks again, and we'll see you later. Alright, so what's your name?
Zacchaeus.
Zacchaeus.
And
Are you a wee little man?
Nope.
Alright.
A wee little man?
Nope.